Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Racing Challenge. JR Gregory here on the call beside me in the booth, Racing Ron Mons in the production carrier, our friend and colleague Joshua Wilkie. He'll be spinning the dials and showing the great camera angles that these broadcasts have become famous for. This week takes us to Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta in the Atlanta suburbs. Very good. Suburbs. This is a 2.5 mile, 12 turn course. It's been open since about 1970. Just celebrated their 50th anniversary. And Ron, this track to me, when we're driving these radicals, it seems like it's going to be a love-hate relationship that these cars are going to have with this course. They are going to love that long straightaway. They're going to love that high-speed sweeping turn one coming off the front straight. And what are they going to hate? The curbs. As a GT3 driver, I'm intimate with these curbs. I touch every curb on every lap, and I'm not sure if the radicals are going to be able to get away with that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the radicals we've seen throughout the season, how some of the radicals can get upset by the curbs. You see Andreas Friedrich riding that curb there and nearly losing it. But yeah, I think from a broadcaster's perspective, I do kind of like the existence of the high curbs here because it gives these drivers a challenge. And certainly one thing that'll definitely be on my radar throughout this broadcast that you mentioned was this very long straightaway that was used to land planes here, bringing in illegal substances into the United States many, many years ago. But these drivers are going to love this straightaway because it not only gives them time to have a bit of a break, but it also gives us a chance to see a lot of overtakes, a lot of drivers trying to slipstream past each other, and a lot of drivers trying to outbrake one another as they go into the chicane that we're seeing Andreas Friedrich go through now.
Yeah, 10A and 10B there, very critical. And I got to say, Ron, I took one of these radicals out for a little flog yesterday to see how it drove. I'm pretty well familiar with the track, and I noticed a couple things. One is I've always considered turn 7 coming onto the back straight a critical corner on this track. So you got to get a good launch to make a move or to protect yourself from somebody behind. And that is a fairly low speed corner in second gear with these EcoBoost 4-cylinder turbos coming on the power. And it can be a challenge to use the throttle effectively to get those cars out of turn 7 and propelled down the back straight. The other kind of interesting problem area is the hill that goes up under the Fox Bridge. And this is something as a GT3 driver I've never experienced before. These cars, as the fuel burn off, actually will get light going under the Fox bridge later in the race. So we may see some incidents there. Caught me by surprise to get wheels off the ground there in a car with this much downforce. So that may be something to watch. Now we've got a number of our top 10 drivers on the course. I see Friedrich out there, Bjorklund, Kasif is in the top 10, I believe. And who are you going to have your eyes on today, Ron, in the absence of our normal dominator, Kane Halliburton?
Yeah, the radical Sith Lord himself, Kane Halliburton, is not here tonight, but there's certain drivers I definitely like to keep an eye on. I'll tell you, Alamari is very impressive to me at the moment. Usually when we see him in the series, he's not really in the top 5. He flirts with the top 5 occasionally, but it's not very common. Right now he's currently on the pole, so beating out Andres Friedrich, who's always been a force to reckon with here in the Radicals, and it looks like he's going to grab the pole position tonight, so I think he will definitely be my one to look at for this evening.
Yeah, I agree with that. Friedrich always is up in the front sniffing around, and he is actually sitting right now in P2 on the season. But here's our starting grid. We got Almari, as Ron mentioned, on pole. Next to him, Andreas Friedrich. Row 2 will be Christian Fry and Kim Bjorklund, another top 10 world driver here. Iwan Bremer and Kyriopoulos behind them in row 3. Gordon Haug in P7. Simmons will be next to him in P8. Sander Island in 9. Gaston Zabulu. Gaston Z, we'll call him the Z-Man, will be in P10. P11, Bradley Groot. And 12, Ramon Sola.
And looking through the rest of the field, we've got Simon Moldecleave in 13th. You have Osman Kasif, who we've seen a little bit of as of late. He is in 14th. Then Fedatov in 15th. We have Shkrui in the 16th position. Then Norst in 17th. Baba in 18th. We have Hesterman in 19th. Kador in 20th. And then Samuel Ma rounding out your field. A lot of drivers choosing not to qualify, including Enrio Baba, who we have seen a little bit of throughout this season. He has been very impressive, so I'm shocked that he decided not to qualify.
Yeah, keep your eye on him. Baba is currently sitting at P5 on the season, so he's got my early look for hard charger. And as we see Al Amri here, we'll have the inside coming off the grid into turn 1.
This is going to be a very interesting start for a lot of these drivers, especially the ones starting on the curve coming around the final turn. So I think we might see a little bit of chaos. We definitely saw some chaos last week in Sebring, so we'll have to see if that chaos carries over to today's race here at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, certainly discretion is going to be the better part of valor here, coming off the line on cold tires, heading into that uphill turn 1, and forming as polite a line as possible to take that first right-hander on turn 3, heading down the hill into the S's, and they are off. We are green. Almari is going to hold his position. Friedrich is going to tuck in behind Bjorklund. Behind him, it's Almari, Friedrich, Bjorklund from Fry, from Bremer, although looks like Bjorklund had an early error. He's losing 2 positions, and Friedrich up into P2 already. A little bit of a problem there from Bjorklund off the start. Not sure what happened. May have overcooked the entry to turn 1, but left the door open, and 2 drivers went through.
I think what happened there with Kim-Andre Bjorklund, I think I saw a small glimpse of him going 3 wide with, I believe it was Free and Friedrich there as they went into turn 1. I believe Kim-Andre Bjorklund decided not to take the risk and just backed out of it. Certainly he is confident in his race car as he goes for the move there on Bremer. Goes a little bit wide though, so Bremer is going to try and take the position back, and there's Kirkapallis down the inside. Bjorklund spins. Multiple cars collected in that as well. I believe there's a few that made contact there, but surprisingly he keeps it in a straight line. A few drivers picking up damage, and certainly Bjorklund just damaged his ego with that spin there very early into this race at turn 7, an area that you suspected was going to be a trouble spot for these drivers.
Yeah, and Bjorklund, you know, that is not how he wanted this race to start. He came in, one of our top 10 drivers on the season, had a problem in turn 1, showed maybe a little bit of impatience there going into the 6-7 complex, wanting to get that position back right away, and got loose again in 7, got some contact, and we'll see whether or not he has picked up any damage and whether that will affect his pace. Meanwhile, Al Omri still up front with a very short gap behind him to Fry. Friedrich in P3 from Hauge. Kiriopoulos, and the Z-Man in P6. P7 is Simmons, Moldikev, Baba, and Solas, your top 10, as we've just completed the first lap. And here we go, down through the S's, back into turn 6 for the second time.
I was going to mention this point, you raised it in the opening part of this broadcast, but as we see the drivers manage that turn 7, that's going to be probably the most important corner in all of this track, because if you get it right, you're going to have a fantastic run going down this very long back straightaway, one of the longest, I believe, in all of American racing here at Road Atlanta, so it's definitely a very important straightaway, and certainly turn 7 is a very important corner for these drivers, especially when they're trying to pull off an overtake. But a lot of these drivers are running into trouble so far. I saw Groot drop down the order. He's currently running in 20th, so not sure what happened to him, most likely an incident, but multiple incidents for these drivers throughout this season. I was going to mention how throughout most of the season we haven't had a lot of chaos. It's been fairly clean, fairly routine, but in the last 2 rounds we've had a lot more drivers going off. Certainly in Sebring was probably the most chaotic race that we had all year, and now from the looks of it we've had multiple drivers go off. We had Bjorklund obviously have that catastrophic mistake that's cost him dearly at this point in the race. He's currently running outside the top 10, but I think we're seeing a bit of a return to how the racing kind of was last season, and I'm not sure if there's been an issue with this car this season. Certainly it's not the easiest to drive in the world, but compared to last year, it's like driving a piece of cake. It's just very easy compared to how it was in season 2 throughout the early spring and throughout the spring and early summer of 2023. And a lot of those drivers were struggling and making their opinions well known with how those cars drove last season. But now we've seen a lot more drivers get involved in incidents, so I'm not really sure what's happened in these last 2 rounds as drivers make more mistakes, but we're seeing some hard racing as we usually see. That hasn't changed.
Absolutely, Ron, and it could be that as we're getting close to the end of the season, the opportunities to move up in the standings are getting fewer and farther between as the drivers see the end of the schedule approaching, and maybe causing a little less caution and a little more send it attitude in these radicals. Riding along with Baba now, still moving up as we discussed before. He's going to take Bjorklund for P9 there going into turn 1, and Baba looks like he has followed through on my hard charger prediction, having moved up 9 positions now as he picks his way through the field from a start way in the back. Baba now is looking at Moldikev all over him, about 2/10 of a gap between those 2 drivers, and we'll see what Baba wants to do on the back straight here. Surely he's going to be within striking distance, and these drivers are going to have a draft going on the back straight on every lap. The question is going to be, what are they going to do with it, and what is the front car going to do? Are they going to try to cover the inside or try to get the better racing line into 10A and 10AB complex? Of course, another critical combination on this track to get a good run down the front straight. And now here, that is who are we looking at there? That must be Bremer and Kedora side by side. Kasif sniffing around there as well, making a crowd happen there into 10A uphill under the Fox Bridge. And as I said, these cars are going to get light at the top of that hill as they burn off fuel, so we may see some hurly-burly there as the race unfolds.
I believe that was actually Bremer, Kasif, and Island there. Island was just stalking the 2 drivers that were battling ahead of him. I believe he'll continue to do that as he's still within striking range of that battle, so we'll have to keep an eye out there. Right now we're focused on the battle with Kim Andre and Bjorklund, who's trying to make it up through the field after that very costly error that we saw in lap 1. It looked like he got hit slightly, but I don't think it gave him too much damage, because he has been cutting through this field now, up 9 positions, but still down at this point. Even though he's currently running in the 9th position, he's actually down 5 so far this race, so he, I believe, is one of the biggest losers. Actually, no, Iwan Bremer is, who's lost 8 positions so far this race. So tough breaks for some of those drivers. Certainly Kim Andre and Bjorklund had that mistake, so that cost him dearly, and he's made up for that. Not sure what happened to Bremer, so he's fallen through the order. But as you mentioned a few laps ago, Ennio Baba has managed to make up the most map positions. Did not set a qualifying time. Not sure what happened. May have had some kind of track limit violation that cost him his qualifying time. But regardless, he started in 18th, has moved up 10 positions so far. So a lot of these drivers putting together some very good races, and some of these drivers are having very challenging races so far as well.
Yeah, and that track limits 1x situation can very easily rear its ugly head on turn 3 particularly. You want to cut that one a little bit to get a good run down the hill. It's very easy to dip your toe over that line, get a 1x, and invalidate your qualifying lap. So that may have happened with Baba, who is, as we said, charging up the field, got by Bjorklund. And you're right, Ron, Bjorklund's car looks clean as a whistle here. It doesn't look like he sustained any significant damage. So he is on pace, although he was not able to hold off Baba. Now it looks like Simmons has got back Bjorklund now as well.
And I believe driver that was involved in that battle, Simon Moldecleve, has had some kind of issue. You can see that he's towed back to the pits along with Ma as well. So 2 incidents with some of those drivers that were outside the top 10. Oh, that was actually a glitch on our end. I apologize for that. Right now we're seeing some battling here. As you mentioned, the Z-Man, the Hispanic-American driver from Guatemala right now trying to get a move done here on Haug and manages to hold on to the position, but I don't think it'll be for very long as Haug is going to get the inside line here going through the final corner. They're going to go side by side. You can see Z-Man Gaston Zambalugi right now holds on to the position even though he touched the grass a little bit there going through the final corner. So that was a very textbook move there. Very impressive stuff. We haven't seen much of him throughout the season, but he put together a very good overtake there. We're going to get a replay here of Simon Moldecleve. Thank you very much, Josh. And let's see what happened here.
I'm watching Moldecleve there in the 14. And yeah,
easy
big
mistake.
Bump there.
Oh, yep. There you go.
Big bump
Easy.
coming out of turn 5, and you got to be cautious on that exit. He had the car in the wrong place, turned it, and there's the result. Ouch, and that will take care of his race.
Yeah, definitely taking him out of contention. If it was real life, he'd definitely have some bruises on his legs and probably a bit more after that very hard impact onto the inside concrete barrier there. So unfortunately for Moldecleve, he is going to be out of this race in 21st. Unless something major happens, he probably won't be rejoining this race anytime soon. So tough break for him. He was running a pretty decent race, all things considered, I believe running inside the top 10 before that crash took him out of the race. So we're seeing Bremer now make some moves there on Sola, I believe. So Bremer making up some lost time that he had at the opening stages of this race. So we're following Alamari now. He has put together a very quiet drive, but he is certainly under pressure here from Free, who's running behind. We haven't seen too much of this lead pack battle. It has spread out a little bit. So that big puff of smoke there, I'm not sure if that was a glitch on my end or what, but still, Alamari putting together a very good race. You can see that car hopping like a bucking bronco as he went through turn 5. That's a very easy corner to make a mistake on, because you gotta think these radicals, what they don't like is high curbs, they don't like bumps, and they don't like very sudden changes of elevation. And turn 5 basically has all of that. You're going uphill, then you have to crest a hill, going over a very high curb with a bump if you're using that access road for a little bit of added runoff space coming through turn 5 to try and carry as much speed. So unfortunately that caught off Moldecleve, and I believe it's caught off some other drivers as well throughout this race, but certainly Moldecleve was the biggest victim of that corner so far.
Wow, and look at our top 3, Alamari, Fry, and Friedrich now, all within 1.3 seconds of each other. Meanwhile, they have put a 7-second gap on P4, so this 3-car train has driven away. We'll see whether or not they feel like getting aggressive here or biding their time and making a move at the end. Now we're with Hesterman, who's taking a look at... looks like Fedotov, and looks like he's going to get that move done. Wow, what a draft. Fedotov, there was nothing he could do to stop that. That's a combination of a good run out of turn 7 by Hesterman and that powerful, powerful draft on that long back straightaway here at Michigan Raceway Road, Atlanta.
I believe Fedotov has been one of the slowest drivers throughout this. Yeah, you can see that lap time was a 1 minute 19.7 compared to Hesterman at 1:18.1. So certainly a very tough lap for him. Not sure if he made some kind of mistake or if he just wore his tires out very badly in the opening 9 laps of this race. That could be something that we see a little bit of. A bit of strategy we've seen a lot with drivers trying to manage their tires at the start. Some other drivers just burning their tires like they're going out of style in the opening part of this race. So it's always something to follow here in the Radicals. Certainly this man, Enrio Baba, he might have put a bit of pressure on his tires trying to go for a move there. But I believe, very squirrely there as he tries to look away past Haug.
Wow, that was a close one. Baba is definitely looking to finish ahead of Haug. He's peaking again here now on the front straight. He's going to try the inside at turn one, and Haug, defenseless, looked like he backed out of that to live to fight another day. That will put Baba up to P6, which is a gain of 12 positions from his grid position. Baba showing his stuff here. As I said, he is a top 5 driver. Let me take a look back. Yeah, he is top 5 on the season in the Radical world. And another little bobble by Bjorklund out of that hazardous turn 5. As Ron said, you've got to use as much of it as you can, but you kind of have to place the car right. There's a big bump right in the middle, and you saw the result there as Bjorklund gets very loose and almost copies the driver we saw earlier with the wall hit.
I certainly don't want to replicate what happened to Moldecleve there a couple laps ago, so Kim Andre and Bjorklund, he might need a change of pants after that very dramatic wiggle there coming through the exit of turn 5, but he lives to fight another day, as now trying to get past his fellow Norwegian of Haug. He manages to get the 7th position now, so I believe he dropped down to about 14th after that mistake that we saw in lap 1, so he's now cut through the field, cut through 7 positions right now as we're seeing some more battling up ahead. That's with Z-Man, with Baba, who is currently running in the 6th position, and Z-Man, as we'll call him, because I really don't want to butcher that pronunciation. One of my closest friends was originally from Guatemala, so I really don't want to get pilloried by him after this broadcast, so we're just going to call him Z-Man from now on. Hopefully he's okay with that nickname. I think it's a pretty awesome nickname, and he's putting together a very awesome drive so far, but was defenseless there as he made that small little mistake there coming through turn 5. Had a big wiggle there. I think he might have got beached on the curb, and that cost him a position there to Baba, but still, he's putting together a very decent drive so far tonight.
Yeah, that turn 5, high risk, high reward. You want to keep the momentum that you build up that hill, and you kind of have to go wide there. But as I said, you got to place the car in the right place and choose your exit path out of there. It's very, very bumpy with a big change in elevation, and you've seen these drivers fighting this throughout the race so far. And here we are looking at Jacob Simmons. He's got Sola behind him, looking to maybe catch a draft here onto the front straightaway.
A lot of very interesting battles that we've seen all throughout this race, and one thing that I have kept a bit of an eye on, I checked a couple laps ago, and one thing that is very interesting at this stage of the race is that the fastest man on track, last lap at least, was Andres Friedrich, who's running in 3rd right now. He was pretty much tied last lap on time with Al Amri, who's currently running in the 1st position. So those drivers very close in lap time. Certainly Friedrich, I don't believe he's won a race so far of these Friday broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV. So I think he might try and look for some kind of redemption, just looking for any way to snooker a win tonight. Certainly we're only 12 laps, coming to 13 laps into this 19-lap race, so certainly there's a bit more time for Friedrich to work with, but I think if he wants to try and snap that win tonight, he's going to have to use these next few laps very importantly to try and close that 1-ish second gap to El Amri, who's battling right now with Free. Free gets the position done as they start lap 13, and Al Amri loses the lead for the first time this race.
Yeah, you could kind of see that one coming, Ron. Fry has been putting down some solid laps. 2nd fastest man on the track currently. He was taking a 10th out of Al Amri on every lap like clockwork. And I think it was only a matter of time before he was able to take advantage of the draft, big draft that we saw there. And speaking of lap times, I mean, obviously all that matters at the end of the race is who's in P1, 2, and 3. But Baba has clocked the fastest lap. He's about a half a second faster than this top group here. He's almost tickling the 114s. And folks, if you don't think these radicals are serious, getting down into the 114s is getting down into IMSA GTE times. If you remember, the 911 RSR has been retired in the US, but it's still racing overseas. So these things are wicked fast to put down those kind of lap times around Road Atlanta.
That was a nice move there from Al Amri, who manages to retake the lead as they went into the chicane. But something we might see a little bit of, actually, I believe we just saw a little bit of it, as Shuri has now been put a lap down. He is running in the 20th position. He has had a very quiet race so far, and is running 20th, one lap down. So I was going to mention a little while ago how he might be involved. He might be a little bit of a pick in this battle, and unfortunately for my talking point there, he managed to get out of the way of these drivers without incident. So that kind of ruined that point that I was going to make, but I still think some more drivers might be at risk of going a lap down. Right now, the other closest is Norse, currently running in the 19th position. He is 55 seconds back of Al Amri, but in this race where they've been running 1 minute 15 lap times at best of these front runners, I don't believe he's going to be at risk unless he makes a massive mistake and manages to lose 20 seconds in the last 5 laps of this race.
Yeah, I think that's right, Ron. And I'm still kind of got my eye on Baba here. He is the fastest man on the track currently, but that 9-second gap up to this front group with no one to tow him down the back straight, I don't think he's going to be able to make it happen, but it will be interesting to watch that gap and see if he can pull that down at all. Meanwhile, again, we got Al Amri, Fry, and Friedrich, 1, 2, 3. There's your podium, all within 0.8 seconds. Some great racing here from these three at Road Atlanta today.
Gotta wonder if Andreas Friedrich is just playing his time at this stage of the race. I'm sure he realizes that he's been a force to be reckoned with all throughout this season. Hasn't really gotten the wins that he would probably want, at least on these Friday broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV. And if you'd like to catch these broadcasts, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you'd like to be a part of these broadcasts, you can race in the top split of the Radical Racing Challenge. Unfortunately, we haven't had splits to report of in the last few races. But still, if you want to be a part of an Apex Racing TV broadcast and show off your prowess behind the wheel of a virtual Radical SR10, then go on iRacing and join the official Radical Racing Challenge session at the Friday night session. I believe it's 5 Eastern. I'm not sure I believe it's 2100 GMT. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really familiar with British time. I've never been to the UK myself, but people can do their own conversions. Google's a thing for a reason. So if you'd like to be a part of these broadcasts, you know where to join them. And if you want to be a part of this fantastic racing, you know what to do, because this has been some good stuff so far. Haven't had too many incidents, but I believe we just had an incident a couple laps ago with Shuri and Island, who have now dropped out of the race in 19th and 20th. They're running towards the back of the pack. Actually, I say that. I believe Island was running in the top 15. Yeah, he must have had some kind of incident. We're going to get a replay to see what happened here. I got to imagine... Oh, I don't have a good feeling about this. Was this in turn 5? Coming up to it now... Ooh, hard hit on the curb, and yep, there you go. Just another mistake in turn 5. That's caught a lot of these drivers out so far, and unfortunately for Island, who's having a pretty decent race at the time, that cost him out dearly, and he is going to be out of contention tonight.
My goodness. Also, fortunately for Island, that we are at a virtual race, because that was a hard hit, and there goes P6, the C-Man, who has maybe been cursed by our inability to pronounce his name, but he has spun off, where are we there? Spun off the inside of turn 7 there, yeah, trying to put the power down, and that is going to cost him dearly. He had been running really well up in P6, and yeah, here we are in 7, and he's going to roll on the throttle and over-rotate that car right into the concrete, and that's one of the areas I was worried about from my experience with the Radical warming up for today's broadcast. Very tough to get the power down there smoothly.
Yeah, I think there's multiple areas of this track that have been real trouble spots for these drivers. You mentioned, well, we've seen a lot of it here as we see the other front runners go through turn 5. That's definitely been the biggest trouble spot so far. But turn 7, we mentioned earlier how that was a very important corner in this race, just trying to get a fantastic run coming out of that last corner before the massive back front flat-out blast So that's definitely a very important corner, and you mentioned a little bit of it early on coming out of turn 10, the last small little crest you go for before you dive down the hill coming to the start-finish line. I'm surprised we haven't seen too much of that there, but you mentioned how on a lighter fuel run, as these Radical SR10s start to light up and the tires start to get a bit fried, we might see a bit more action there, so that could play a bit of a role in this lead pack. We might see a driver make a small little mistake there. If you make a big mistake there, you got to let off the gas hard to try not to spin. So I think we might see a little bit of that play in effect in the final stages of this race.
And here we are with Fry now, still sitting at P2. He's got about 0.5 ahead of him to Al Amri and 0.2 behind him to Friedrich. He may be paying more attention to his rear view at this point than forward. Friedrich has reeled him in coming down the hill, and there they go, banging over those treacherous bumps on the exit of turn 5, heading down into the 6-7 complex. What kind of run is Friedrich going to have here out of turn 7 and onto the back straight? Running out of time, 2 laps to go, and if Friedrich wants to make something happen, he's going to have to do it. There's a back marker there, looks like on the side of the road, who had the same had that turn 7 issue come up for him, and maybe lifting off the gas there has taken a bite out of both Fry's and Friedrich's gap. When they saw that car spinning, they might have lifted just a little bit to be cautious, and that has spread that front group out just a touch.
I'll tell you what, these drivers are still tracking very consistent time, so I think they've been fairly easy on their tires, but certainly this man, Andreas Friedrich, is the fastest of this pack, so I think as we enter the last lap, I think we'll see a lot of these drivers shuffle. I think probably by the time we get back to the checkered flag in 1 lap's time, I think this order up at the top 3 could be very different. For all we know, they could crash into each other, and Baba, who started the race down in 18th, who has made it up 14 positions so far, he could manage to win this. Certainly Andreas Friedrich there, you can see him go off the track. Very interesting interpretation of track limits. Unfortunately for him, I think he tried to give it everything, and it's going to cost him as he's dropped back at this pack up at the front. I believe this is spread out, so unless something major happens, this could be it.
Yeah, you saw Friedrich beating it a little bit too hard through the S's there, going in the grass. He may have picked up a slowdown there. There's Fry giving his congratulatory headlight flash to Al Amri, who has more or less led from flag to flag. I think Fry was ahead of him for a few hundred feet here. But Al Amri has dominated this one, and great racing by these folks up front. Particularly Friedrich is going to get an A for effort for just driving hard, driving aggressive. And is Bjorklund going to get one more position here going into turn 10? A little contact, and Bjorklund.
There you go. Yep,
and
that's Karakopoulos there doing a very interesting interpretation of track limits going through turn 10. He locks up and manages to lose that top 5 at the last moment to Kim André Bjorklund, who dropped back to 14th after a first lap mistake. He manages to claw back up to 5th. Certainly a decent recovery drive from him.
Yeah, wow, that was quite a drive from Bjorklund, and if there's a lesson in there, it's never give up. He had a very early incident on lap 1. The field streamed past him, a couple mistakes in a row, but he kept his head down and kept pushing. And Baba up 14 positions from his starting spot, and also setting the fastest lap. So Baba easily gets the hard charger starting way back in the back of the field as our final runners here are crossing start finish, and we will get to the results here shortly. So what do you think, Ron? Is this about what you were expecting for today?
Yeah, I was expecting probably a little less chaos. I mean, certainly didn't have too much chaos, especially compared to last round at Sebring, where we saw drivers going off at least once every 3 laps or so. So certainly a bit more incidents throughout this race, some that we didn't get to see a lot going through turn 5, exiting turn 5 at least. So bit more chaos than we've seen throughout this season, which I was kind of expecting, but very interesting pack up at the front that managed to stay fairly line of stern throughout this race. I was expecting a bit more battling, especially on that last lap, but they spread out on that last lap, and Al Amri takes a very dominant win tonight.
Absolutely, and there is your finishing results there. Al Amri, whose name I've pronounced 18 different ways today, will get P1. Fry manages to hold off Fry in P2, Friedrich in 3, Ennio Baba, your hard charger, winds up in P4. Bjorkland, fantastic comeback drive for some early airs up in P5. Karyopolis in 6, Bremer in 7, Gordon Haug will be P8, Jacob Simmons in 9, Ramon Sola will round out your top 10. Then we have the Z-Man, Gaston Zabalaju, maybe? Osman Kasif behind him in 12, Samir Kadura in 13, Hesterman in 14, Bradley Great in 15, Samuel Ma, Sergei Fedotov in 17, Yannick Norst in 18, Sander Island, I think he had some encounters with concrete and or grass that put him back in P19. Same with Shori in 20 and Moldekliev in P21. He also had a encounter, hard hit, actually exiting turn 5, which put him out of the race. So there is your Radical race at Road Atlanta. Man, that was fantastic. These cars are an absolute hoot. This is a great track, very well suited for them, and a fantastic show. Sorry we didn't see our usual dominant man up front, but this race was absolutely a thrill to watch and gave us kind of everything that I was looking for. And Ron, what do we got in store for next week here on Apex Racing TV?
I'll tell you, we've got a lot of broadcasts coming up. We have the ARL GT3 Trophy on Tuesday. Then we have the ARA Porsche Cup as well next week. So we've got a lot of action here on Apex Racing TV. But if you're a fan of Radicals and strictly the Radicals, again, we're 9 races into 12 races this season. We've had a lot of action so far this race, and I'm sure in the final 3 races of this season, we're definitely going to have a lot more action to come. The next race of the season will be at Bathurst. That'll be a very interesting challenge for a lot of those drivers, managing the tight section up at the top of the hill, the very long straightaways, and certainly the massive changes in elevation at that circuit, which will lead to some fantastic racing and certainly some very challenging evening for those drivers next week, which if you want to watch that race, you can tune in at the same time here on Apex Racing TV. And then for the rest of the season, for the final 2 races, we race at Interlagos and then Canadian Tire Motorsports Park on the 1st of September, I believe. Let me check my calendar to make sure that's correct. Yes, the 1st of September for the final race of the Radical Racing Challenge here on Apex Racing TV from Season 3 of 2023. So if you want to join us, that's when you want to join, and those are the tracks we'll be running at. So hopefully we can see whoever's watching right now, hopefully we can see you then.
Outstanding. And I'd like to mention as well, Apex Racing is not just about these fantastic broadcasts. Check out Apex Racing Academy. It's an add-on to your VRS subscription. We have all the features that you've become accustomed to with VRS. We have got one-on-one coaching, group coaching, telemetry, sample laps, and setups. So if you would like to find a way to eke those last couple of tenths out of your lap times, add Apex Racing Academy to your VRS subscription today. So my name is J.R. Gregory. I've been on the call with you here today with my partner, Racing Ron Mons, in the production booth, our good friend and colleague and absolutely excellent producer, Joshua Wilkie, twisting the knobs and pushing the buttons for you today. And I'll tell you what, folks, it has been an outstanding race. We will see you next week at Bathurst. In the meantime, have a great weekend and a better week.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.